All right, well, good. I'm sorry, I'm just a standard. So I guess I'm a standard. But anyway, good morning and welcome to the 2022 session of small business on the panel for the CRA Summit. We're really excited. So if you're not in small business, this is your time to exit, but we hope you stay because we got a real great panel for you today. My name is Joyce Odongo. I'm the Community Development Officer for Bank OZK for Florida and North Carolina. So it's such a pleasure to support the South Florida CRA. It's so proud. We're proud to support them because we have our own story, and so that's why I picked the small business session. Bank OZK is 117 years old. But what's unique, and it was founded in Jasper, Arkansas, and it had 2 locations in like rural Arkansas. But what's unique about us is our current president and CEO in 1979 purchased the bank at the age of 24 for $26 million. He was an attorney, and he decided, you know what, this is a good investment for me to, engage in. And so he is still the president and CEO at that, at this time. 43 years later, fast forward, $26 billion company, 2,800 employees, 240 locations in 8 states. So it's pretty cool. So when they said, who wants to moderate small business? I said, you know what, I have a great story for that. So we'll go ahead and do that. But we are a full service bank. We're headquartered out of Little Rock, Arkansas, but 40 of those branches are right here in the state of Florida. We have one in Broward and a couple down in the Miami area, and then we go up north where a lot of my branches are headquartered in the Tampa area. But we're really excited to be here because you have a phenomenal panel. We saw 2 of them this morning. They got a lot of energy, right? So I woke up this morning, I came from Orlando at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I told them, give me some of your energy. So I think it's working. I think it's working. So we have a great panel, and today we're going to talk about resources that are out there in the community for small businesses, succession planning. We're going to talk a little bit about venture capital, and then also preparing for government programs and pandemic relief. I mean, we kind of are still in the pandemic. I'm sure all the dollars are exhausted, but where do we go from here? And that's going to be some of the things that our panelists will be speaking about. So here to my right, we have Jeanine Suah, and you heard about her this morning. Who can tell me one interesting thing that they remember from this morning? Yeah. Right? And she speaks 3 languages. I remember that. That was pretty cool. So I'm not going to go through her bio because we went through the bio this morning. But on the far right, we have Stephanie Van Vark. And Stephanie creates media, events, and communications that spreads homegrown, culturally rich anecdotes to the masses. Through her company, the founder and president, Stephanie Van Vark, promotes the heart and soul of communities and cultures using decades of experience in digital media events, communications, and community relations. And I'll let her tell you more about herself, but I just wanted to give you a sneak preview. And then on right immediately in the middle, we have Suzanne Jewell, who was giving us peace this morning. Remember the peace? I don't know where your feet are on this earth this morning, but Susan told you to put it there. So Susan's often called the mindful jewel. And the mindful entrepreneur came to put her tush on a cush when she experienced burnout, facing an unruptured aneurysm and a rare set of neurological diseases. The nearness of death became a powerful teacher in her meditation practice to help her find daily gratitude and a new personal hashtag, woke up above ground. So those are our 3 speakers this morning, and what I wanted to do is have them just tell a little bit about themselves before we get into the kind of questions and talk about the topics that we're going to discuss this morning. So we'll start off with
Hey friends. So of course, hosting and having a ball with you guys, but I'll share a little bit more about my professional background just so that it makes sense as to why I'm up here. My training is in sociolinguistics, so I studied a lot of second language acquisition, which is how people acquire their second languages. And I started out as a small business owner. I owned a co-working space in Little Haiti, incubated a lot of businesses, startups, but of course, you know, launching in February 2020 and the world shutting down in March, we had to really pivot and figure out how to sustain ourselves. So long story short, look to tech and the digital world as a way of doing that, which is where I am now, and I'm absolutely loving it. My brain is very like logical and forward thinking, which is why I love tech. And then also in doing that, like I realized that in building this huge community of over 3,500 founders, that a lot of them had a lack of access to capital. And so that's why I got into investing and venture capital and just also like venture partners as it relates to equity crowdfunding. And so I won't go too far into it, but just wanted to give you a high overview of started in the small business space. Now I'm in tech and also working in investing as a way to just make access to capital more equitable and just more deserving for other people.
So good morning, everyone. And I want to let you know I did not get here to share mindfulness and meditation with you because I was a yoga teacher. That is not my entry in the door. I moved to Miami 26 years ago to work in the global television business and actually helped launch AOL and DirecTV as a branding expert over almost 37 countries. And I experienced my first round of burnout. And I got out of that world, opened up my own business in branding and marketing. And while I was actually living in Miami, working for the Gates Foundation in Ethiopia, my mother was passing away up in Michigan of cancer. And when she passed, I experienced real burnout. And that's when I put my tush on a cush. And it is how I learned both the ability to be able to bring calm to any kind of noisiness that's going on, because more often than not, it's actually the noisiness inside your head. And it has turned out that my business has now brought me to be able to train and teach conscious and mindful leadership at Babson College and their Women Innovating Now program. I'm a startup coach with that program. I'm also a BizHack LinkedIn Academy, BizHack Academy LinkedIn coach. And I also work with Miami-Dade College's startup scale-up program at the Idea Center. And we are going to be launching for the first time ever this spring, the Mindful Resilience Summit, teaching people how mindfulness and nature equal the key to human resilience. So stay tuned for that, because a lot of that leadership is going to be geared towards small business people. That's the raison d'etre for me being on this panel, is to talk about no matter what you're doing in terms of your social impact, whether you have fulfilled your proof of concept, whether you are actually delivering on your minimum viable product, or whether or not you actually have your first round of raise, if you are not caring for you as one of the key 4 pillars of your business, it won't matter how much you raise. It won't matter how much money in the bank you have in the bank. If you burn out, everything falls down. So I'm here to talk about why it is that in pandemic relief, part of it needs to be well care for you as the actual small business owner or entrepreneur. So thanks for coming to join us today.
Thank you so much. I have to confess, I'm a little nervous because I'm used to interviewing people. I'm not usually on the other side. Again, my name is Stephanie Van Vark and my company is Stephanie Creates. I'm originally from a little small town known as Thomasville, Georgia. Somehow landed in Miami and landed in a historic neighborhood known as Overtown. Historic Overtown is a historically black neighborhood. Planted, still there now today. But noticed very quickly that it was very important to help communities, especially communities of color, especially communities that are challenged communities, promote and build a brand that will get people to not only come back into the neighborhood and feel that they're safe, but invest money in the neighborhood. And so we started Stephanie Creates initially in the realm of marketing, PR, events production, and then a little thing called the pandemic came. So I had to pivot. And
decided to go into an area that's a little bit more of my passion, which is digital media. We were able to make that shift pretty quickly by using or creating a series of podcasts that we're now producing, one of which is called Just Talking Business, where we talk to businesses about their pivot plan. That's something we hadn't thought about before the pandemic. So many businesses have had to shift along the way for various reasons, but definitely had to learn how to make that an important part of their business plan, which is something we had not been doing very well before. We also do a series of podcasts called Jigsaw Parenting, around just parenting, the question of parenting, and various other podcasts we'll be launching very soon. And also our claim to fame is goingovertown.org. We created a website, newsletter, digital media around this historic neighborhood, so you learn a different side of the neighborhood than what's being perceived in the media. You get to go on our website, you can see all of the historical sites. You can learn about all the exciting things that are happening there now, and that all sort of started maybe in 2008. So glad to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, now that you've heard from our panelists, we have a couple questions that we want to ask you. And Stephanie, you started off by talking about how you had to pivot because of the pandemic. And so I'd like for each of you to really talk about why it was so crucial for you to pivot. What could have happened to you if you didn't pivot? And was this something that probably would have come down the lane if we didn't have the pandemic?
So it's sort of interesting. I like to sort of tell this side story. I'm small business, you go to a multitude of workshops and programs, but there wasn't a lot out there about the pivot plan or the emergency plan. And it was sort of in the nonprofit world, because of the funder contract agreement, a part of that commitment is that you have an emergency plan should something happen. But there's nothing like that for profit. But I did have a chance to go to one that was very interesting. When you ask small businesses if they had an emergency plan, most of them said no. And if so, they had just enough for 2 weeks worth of business because we experienced hurricanes, and that's as far as we could think. Now, true, nobody expected a pandemic, but some things that did come up was the recession. We have an inflation. What are some of those things that we need to take into consideration? So you're right. Like, it really started the pandemic. At the time, as PR and events, every event shut down. So I was forced to pivot, or my business would have been closed. And so, and I think that was the case for many businesses. But it was also refreshing because I also had a chance to meet other small business owners who were very innovative, very creative, came up with some really dynamic ideas to stay alive. So the beauty of it was it really got people to tap into their passion, tap into their creativity, tap into their abilities, do some things they might not have done before. Definitely for me, I'm more of a behind the scenes person. I found myself in front of the screen. That's, it's different, but it worked. So yes, definitely the pivot or the pandemic shed some light on some things I needed to do differently, and it was successful.
So oddly, and actually I'm finding out I'm not the only one who feels this, was the pandemic any good for your business? Raise your hand. I'm in the business of stress. The pandemic was awesome for my business. What was really curious though was how people gathered before. People came to me like I had been, burned out executives, burned out leaders, fried teams, people feeling overwhelmed. When you did a good marketing digital search on SEO, what were the top things that were being shared? Stress, overwhelm, burnout. And so curiously enough, my pivot that I called How to Dare Greatly, I encourage failure. Being in the startup space, I encourage you to dare greatly, fail mindfully, which means keep your eyes wide open, note what happened, take note of what was an option there for you to actually learn from, so that when you dare greatly fail mindfully, you pivot positively. Because we as humans tend never to learn, and I happen to be one of them, unless something smacks me upside the head. Usually we learn through pain. We usually learn through difficulty. So stunningly enough, I believe that while the pandemic has been horrific and difficult, and some of us have lost loved ones, or economic impacts have definitely occurred, I have great hope for what has happened. And in my case, for the business, it's moved me closer to what my passion is. And in the case of the stress and overwhelm, besides mindfulness and the actual neuroscience of learning how to calm yourself, because if you literally learn how to use your attention plus your breath to calm your distress, those are the ABCDs of mindfulness. If you learn those, you actually can make better decisions, because you're making decisions from the front part of your brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex, and it's the mammalian part of your brain. And it's not when you're in stress or overwhelmed when you make those decisions. What I came to find out was that it called me and many of us outside into nature. And I stepped forward in my belief system, which was to dare greatly. And I now have just begun 3 weeks ago a new partnership that is a physical location. It's in the Redlands. It's called the Patch of Heaven Sanctuary. It's a 20-acre nature preserve and forest. And I'm actually going to be teaching mindful leadership immersion in nature, because guess what? 20 minutes in nature, even if you don't know anything about mindfulness, reduces your stress hormone of cortisol. And so the pandemic for me has not only been great for business, it's helped me pivot even more bravely towards something like, yeah, I'm going to try to get as many of you into green spaces as I possibly can. And so stay tuned.
Pivoting takes a keen sense of like self-awareness, to where you have to realize at a certain point, okay, this isn't working. How do I move forward? But it also takes like being super real with yourself. As a small business owner previously, we invested a lot of money. Like for those of you who are in real estate or who've ever invested into real estate, like real estate is super capital intensive in the beginning stages. So there was a point where during the pandemic, I'm like, we've just invested $100,000 of our own money into this business. What the hell is happening? Like, we have no incoming cash flow. How are we going to make money? And granted, it was super hard. Everything in life is hard, but you have to have the self-awareness to be like, okay, at what point are we going to keep doing the same thing? Or at what point are we going to have to shift and adapt to the ever-changing times? And so that was an amazing point for us, that it was like, okay, what can we do that we can still make some of our money back, a small percentage of it back, to be able to still serve the same purpose and mission that we set out to do by opening up the space and building community. And community was the key word. So we switched to the digital space and started building community online, virtual summits. Of course, everybody in here, I'm sure, is like zoomed out. But back then, that was a hot thing. We were, it was like we were being innovative. So I won't speak too long about that, but I think that just all in all, what I did want to emphasize is that pivoting really takes a sense of self-awareness to be like, at what point am I gonna keep going on this track and not finding the results? Or am I gonna take the leap, fail mindfully, and move to something that I can be more effective in, that will ultimately help me reach the purpose that I set out to accomplish?
That was great, because I heard a lot about passion and shifting and adapting and pivoting. Is there someone in the audience that before the pandemic, maybe they were thinking about they had to close their doors, but the pandemic opened up a lot of opportunity for them? Anybody that cares to share their story that might have happened to? No. Anyone that had to switch and had real good success? Anybody want to share that story? I know somebody got a good story. There were people that, okay, yes, come on, share your story.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Talbert. I'm the founder of Her Power Space. We're a woman forward, men welcoming co-working space located in Lauderhill. We help micro business owners look big, and I opened January 12th, 2020. You know I was following you guys, right? So for us, I wasn't even out of a grand opening plan before we were getting into an emergency plan. But I was blessed to have a background in e-commerce. Community was huge. We instituted scanning of mail, right? Because we have mail services. We were sold out through April when we first opened. But because of our community continuing to show up, and because we don't require membership fees, no one canceled, and we grew, and we just celebrated our 2nd anniversary. So,
That was awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Cora, did you have a story?
I do.
Okay.
It's not my story, it's my husband's story. And I could tell it because we've been married a long time. My husband is in the restaurant business. And if you don't realize, the restaurants suffer a lot. He has a small barbecue restaurant in Mount Vernon, Florida. It's a small, predominantly white community. He is the only barbecue place in this particular community. Very small community. Really had a walk-in barbecue restaurant. It wasn't just an outdoor pit or anything like that. We have 15 seats. We've got employees and all of that stuff. Well, the pandemic hit. The restaurants closed down. You couldn't get meat. You couldn't get supplies. All of those things were impacting him. And because he was an in-store restaurant, he had to really think about what am I going to do in order to not have to let go of all these people. And it wasn't a bunch of people. We're only talking about 5 individuals that depended on Willie's Barbecue for help. Now, the other part of the story, Willie is only open 2 days. He's only open on Fridays and Saturdays. Typical Black barbecue restaurant type setup. He's an old man, you know, don't y'all tell him I said. But he is. But he can only do 2 days. That was it. And so what he decided to do, since we couldn't bring people into the restaurant, to get a to-go window. That's like, whoa, McDonald's has it. And all of these other places, and you think, how in the world did you do that? Thank God we own the property. We were able, the week we closed down, my brother's a handyman, we put a to-go window in there. The neighborhood loves my husband. We have not missed a beat, or he has not missed a beat. My transition to technology. I do training, online training, and my preference has always been go-to-webinar. I am so afraid of Zoom. Terribly afraid of Zoom. My first Zoom class, I really did a terrible thing. It made me think I don't ever want to do this again. And because I didn't understand how to close out something in front of my screen, I didn't know what to do, and I had to learn. So now I pivoted. I like that term. I pivoted over to Zoom because most people love Zoom. So I got to get up to date with what's going on in the market because I'm old too. And I just wanted to be a part of what was going on, and the importance of being able to pivot is so critical to your success in the future as a business. And we are a small business as well. We have 4 employees and we're scattered all over the United States. But we've got a good membership, and we didn't want to let our membership just not have anything under the training ground. And that's why we made the change. And it actually works. It actually works. So thank y'all.
Those 2 were awesome stories because, you know, change can bring adversity. It can bring, you know,
just challenge in general, but how do we face it? How does a man stand in the middle of change and when everything's coming at you? So thank you so much for sharing that. There are gonna be different times we're gonna ask the audience to come in and share their stories because we don't have all the answers. Some of the answers lie within you, and we have to share amongst ourselves because we're like a village here. So I'm not gonna quit my day job, but I like to try to be funny every once in a while. And when we went through this whole pandemic, and as Cora was saying, we're all on Zoom and everything. We're Zooming here, we're going to the next Zoom, and I thought about Aretha Franklin. I said, she was talking about Zooming in 1980. But we don't listen to it. So we go, who's Zooming who? So, who's the next meeting we're going to? So the next area we wanted to talk a little bit about, and Jeanine, you kind of touched on it in the beginning of your introduction, but the venture capital. We want to talk a little more about that and maybe how to utilize venture capital funding because we know it's a growing industry.
How many entrepreneurs are here? Yes. Okay, good. How many people have enabled their businesses with tech since the pandemic? Okay, me too. Okay, so I asked because venture capital is a very unique and targeted sector that aims to bring outsized returns. And so venture capital is a form of investing. It's an asset class that's typically for startups. So high growth startups looking to grow, and nowadays the standards like $1 billion. So everybody wants to become a unicorn, right? Back then meaning like 10 years ago, it was like, oh, okay, if we get to 100 million, great. Now it's like the metric that you minimally want to hit is $1 billion. So venture capital, I feel like in the small business space is something that I didn't really understand initially. I thought that all capital was treated equal, and it is not in any way, shape, or form. But it's really great, I think, on the small business side because now this program Joe Biden launched. It's been around for I think like 40 years. The SSBCI, the Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBC. Yes. SSBCI. Basically, they started partnering. Public entities started partnering with venture capital funds to be able to deploy capital to small businesses so that more equity. And I think recently Joe Biden signed something that was it needed like a certain percentage needed to be allocated to minority-owned businesses. And so this was a way of making sure that the disbursement of venture capital funds are being dispersed equitably because less than 2% of Black founders get access to this capital, less than 1% of Black female founders get access, and less than 2% of female founders get access to it. That's not even counting Latinx founders, which is less than 1%. So it's just, the numbers are terrible, obviously, right? But venture capital is now being used as a vehicle for rapid growth and for change. And I think that where I like to be active in it is just opening my eyes and opening my colleagues' eyes to different deals that enable us to invest in people who don't always look like us, but more importantly, who don't think like us, because I don't think that diversity is just what you look like. Diversity is very much so your thought process, whether no one person or no one group is a monolith. So I think it's important to just leverage venture capital as a means for infusing these companies with money so that they can grow. Right. And so I think it's mainly focused, I will say, in like the tech sector. So you do have to be doing quite a bit amount of revenue to be considered a candidate for it. But as it relates to the SSBCI, there are certain accelerators and programs that are partnering with these organizations that you can go and get money from, depending on what stage you are in your business, how much revenue you're doing. So it's honestly, I love it. That's why I got involved. And I could talk all day, but I won't. And so I'll end my thought there.
Is anyone in the audience use venture capitalist funds to help grow their businesses? You have. Would you like to share your story? You might want to talk on the mic because the only reason why I say is we have people online and they won't hear you because. Yeah, come on up. Come on down. You say on the price is right. It's your lucky day.
My name is Carla Latimer. I'm a local community developer in the Miami area. I haven't received venture capitalism, but what I do notice is that a lot of people are going through tech transitioning in their companies due to COVID. And during that time frame, a lot of small businesses in the community have contacted me like, okay, I don't know how to make this transition. So not only is there a need for the technology, but there's also the need for like infrastructure, like Wi-Fi in our city, smart city development. So all these things go like hand in hand. And it's very difficult from us on the ground level to get access to services for small businesses and companies to make the transition in the tech world without the dollar support. So whereas venture capitalism is for maybe like an idea or a concept or an app, you know, there's also that funding gap right there where we can't get technological services to the small businesses on time to keep them up to date. So there's this lag. So I wanted to know from your experience, how do we fill that gap? Because that's a huge gap with technology transitioning for community agencies, small businesses, and even government. You know, there was a huge, you know, lag with government trying to transition. Look at the school system, like we're all dealing with it, but is there funding specifically for that, to fill that gap?
Thank you for that. Yes, girl, honestly, love that. Yes, there is. Whether or not it's easy to access is the work that I'm currently doing. Like the funding gap, pardon my language, it pisses me off, right? But there's so much money out there, but it's also hard to put it where it needs to go so that we can see the change at scale. The good thing is there are amazing community leaders who are doing the work actively and who are partnering with these VC funds in order to get the money in the community. One person in particular, Ted Lucas, if you guys are familiar with him, founder of Slip Inside Records, he saw what was happening in the tech scene and he was like, I need to be a part of this and I need to bring this to the community because he's from Miami Gardens. So he's been doing a lot of partnerships and he recently launched a nonprofit that would do, Carla, what you just said is first of all, getting the infrastructure needed on the Wi-Fi side to be able to even enable yourselves with technology, which I know the Miami Foundation last year also started a new campaign to be able to make it more available and accessible throughout the city and throughout the entire county. And then also Ted Lucas is working on developing programs that will empower kids from a young age. So not just like, okay, how do we fix the problem and rip off the Band-Aid now, but more so how do we prevent the problem from happening by starting the kids off with the right programming and the right education and the right resources and funding that they need from a very young age so that they don't have to go through a lot of these gaps. So to kind of wrap up my thought, it's being done, unfortunately not fast enough. And so venture capital is also weird in a sense that it's not nonprofit money. They have a different thought process in terms of how they invest their money. So that's also what makes it a little difficult in terms of dispersing that capital. But it's happening, not fast enough. We're working on it. Fingers crossed, because it's clearly a problem that we need to fix like now.
Thanks for asking that question, because that leads me to the next.
I'm not sure if you're a for-profit developer or doing anything with affordable housing. There's a fund that Goldman Sachs has started that has $75 million that specifically wants to invest in Black women funds. So in projects, in Black women projects. So I'll share that information with you. And yesterday we also announced another grant program specifically for Black women that's much smaller, but it also includes training as well.
Well, thank you for sharing. What's your name again? So everybody can come to you and you can tell them the money. I was going to talk about that subject next, about community programs that might be out there to assist small businesses. You know, kind of heard of some here in the Miami area. The Miami Bayside Foundation has a program, Small Black Business Enterprise. So interested in receiving capital through that. I know there is a statewide CDFI, the Black Business Investment Fund. There is organizations that provide technical assistance as well as funds. Axiom down in Miami as well. And so those are just a couple. I don't want to expand on some other programs that might be out there to provide funding? Yeah, Prospero provides technical assistance as well, and they do grants as well.
So I'm based in the Miami area, so I will probably talk more specifically in that area, but she is correct. Fortunately, I have to say during the pandemic, there were a great deal of resources out there that was available to businesses. You know, branches, as I talked earlier, who was very helpful in supporting me during that time. As you mentioned, the Bayside Foundation. Catalyst Miami as an organization. I know Emerging Leaders help support small businesses. There is the Beacon Council actually just formulated sort of a collaborative collection of folks in the ecosystem that are helping small business development, and they're working collaboratively to help small businesses. So that might be a good place and source to go. Partners for Self-Employment. There's a wealth of opportunities out there. You might have to do a little Googling. You definitely have to do some networking, but you can definitely find those sources. I will say this though, one of the challenges we found during the pandemic was people being able to be prepared to submit their financial documents, making sure their bookkeeping is up to par, making sure that they can talk to and speak to exactly who they serve, what they serve, how they serve other people. And that has been a conversation that's come up a lot. So we really still have sort of a challenge when it comes to particularly folks in challenged communities who are just trying to stay open from sun up to sundown and may not be able to collect all the data and the information that they need to in order to get those kind of opportunities. I'll also mention Neighbors and Neighbors is also very beneficial and helpful tools for change also in helping me as well. So it's out there. There are resources out there. There's opportunities out there, but I really encourage small business to talk today to those entities that can help you get your paperwork in order, because you're not going to get any of it if you're not ready.
I would also add, from a storytelling standpoint, besides your financial story, from a marketing standpoint, how you say who you serve, what is your impact, and what has either been detrimentally impacted by the pandemic or positively impacted is extremely important. Being able to communicate your who, your what, and your why is as important as having your financial paperwork together. You've really got to be a good brand storyteller nowadays. And that brand storytelling, especially as a nonprofit, even a small mom and pop, needs to come from the standpoint of what is your social impact? And that is key to being able, no matter what the resources are, to be able to get that. It's even part of the VC world because you have to be able to pitch. The whole idea of pitching in 2 minutes or less, or an elevator pitch, is a very, very wise thing to learn how to do. I'd highly recommend, if you've never done that, download the Guy Kawasaki 10-slide template that will help you figure out what is your what, who are you serving, what is your point of differentiation, why you, and what is your actual value proposition, because that will help you tell your story to gain those funds a lot more easily. Guy Kawasaki 10-slide pitch deck, available for free on Google.
Hey, we like free, right? Again. Oh, okay. Okay. Yep. Yes.
Hear you on the
Oh, right, I'm sorry, you said that.
Good morning. My name is Courtney Biscardi. I'm Executive Vice President for the Urban League of Broward County. And we have a subsidiary called the Central County Community Development Corporation. We do offer full service entrepreneurship or business development services for small businesses through our Entrepreneurship Center, which would range from offering support to startup businesses all the way to those who are looking for growth. And our CDFI, the Central County Community Development Corporation, does offer capital. We launched our CDFI in 2020. And so this is really our first time being out and about, really talking about our offerings. But if you have a capital need, we certainly expect that you come see us. And while we're based in Broward, we also serve the state, but we are hyper-focused on Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties. And so please, please, please talk to one of our team members. JR is in the back. We got Orly, Dr. Sweetland in the front. And the last thing that I'll say for this quick infomercial, so sorry, is that we also have a phenomenal program called the UBiz Collab, which really focuses on what you just described, how to get those businesses in position to be good candidates for capital. So we focus on accounting, legal, marketing, IT, and operations over a 6-month period. It's a membership program with very low cost, highly subsidized from supporters that are also in this room. So we really want to encourage you to come seek our services. In your pamphlet, in your program, there is a QR code, so you can scan that and you can get access to us. So thank you so much for this time.
I started my list so I could read it, and you were on that list. Broward County, yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is George Gapson. I'm the Associate Director for the Florida Small Business Development Center at Florida Atlantic University, serving Broward and Palm Beach County. And I'm here to say that we provide the technical assistance, and she's so on point. When PPP and IDL came about, we found small businesses not having their paperwork in order, not being able to do what they need to do. We provide technical assistance to businesses from small to large size businesses at no cost to you. You've already paid for it. Proud to say we have a great relationship with the folks at the Urban League. We've worked very much along with them for over 5 years in helping in one of their programs. Individuals wanted to start their business, met with me, they did their business plan. We did over 175, and we have a gentleman in the back, photographer, that raised his hand. He was one of our clients. So take advantage of what we do here, okay? And the Urban League did a phenomenal job with their programs. Thank you.
Yeah. And then we'll get to the back.
Such tough acts to follow. My name is Jolicia St. Louis. I work with accesshelps.org, Access Helps Miami. We also provide a wealth of resources for small businesses and individuals and families. We partner with Prospera, we partner with Urban League of Broward as well. But if you go to our site, it's very, very user-friendly. You can go on, we have grants laid out, we have loans laid out. And then we also provide for you a list of criteria or things that you will need to gather to be able to apply to these different grants and programs. So I highly encourage you, if you're a small business or you're working with small businesses, to just go on there and check it out. We're constantly updating it with whatever is available in the community for you all to be able to apply to.
They are.
Thank you guys. Everything you guys have said. My name is Josh Newman. I'm the loan program manager for Miami Bayside Foundation. And what's funny is I was going to plug accesshelps.org. Please check out that resource. It's AX, not ACCES, but AXIS helps.org. It's a major resource where you can find all of us CDFI lenders. Miami Bayside, we cover Monroe County, Broward County, and Miami-Dade. We've been doing it for over 10 years. And we're just here to help. If anyone has any questions about how to get funded, please come speak with me.
If you are looking for funding, you need to go see Josh. Like literally, that man knows everything about the system. He knows how to just get you right. So FYI.
Good day, everyone. My name is Simone Smith-Bean, and I am actually a small business owner in South Florida. I am the founder of Hustle Innovations. And Hustle Innovations is in its infancy stage as a tech company. We're looking to do our feasibility study at the moment. Our goal is to narrow the economic gap and provide resources to individuals who are looking to take their solopreneurs projects to the masses. And so we have been working very closely with Ms. Lattimore recently and looking to work with partners to find out more information as to what's needed for the community to connect and to get the information to the right sources. I heard you talk about the gap between being able to connect with the normal person every day hustling on the street and getting that information to them. And we would like to bridge that gap at Hustle. And so I would look to partner with any organization that would be able to give insight, information, details, so that we can reach and create the technology that's going to assist our community the most. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. And I know some people wanted me to repeat my list, so I'm going to repeat it. And I promise you I was laughing because the second on my list was Broward County Urban League. So I didn't forget about you. But Miami-Dade Foundation, Broward County Urban League, Prospera, Catalyst, the Beacon Council, I heard that, Black Business Investment Fund. And then there's a women in minority business.org as well that will assist in Axion and Access. Help. Access helps, I'm sorry. Okay, was there a question?
Thank you. My name is Lilia from Basic Academy, and we offer online masterclasses for small businesses for free. We also have paid programs. Our next season will feature the great Suzanne in mindfulness and how to be a mindful entrepreneur and small business owners. We are also a small business owner and business owners, and we offer training in digital marketing, communication, branding, with top experts. And again, we offer free programs as well. We partner with Access Helps, with Miami Bayside Foundation, with Miami Foundation, and we're actually looking for sponsors on promotional partner for our programs. So Tiffany and I are here with the purple shirt. So thank you everyone, and thank you for all the support that you do for small businesses. Like business and hacking. Yes.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, because that, you know, resources are important. And if you don't have.
Can I share? Perfect. Okay, so. There's always a choice. There's all. I thank you for that. No, but sincerely, so I come from a different space. I wasn't in the room, because I've been switching back and forth. So I didn't hear the complete build up, but just hearing the resources, I will share. I am a small business owner myself. I have been doing business in this marketplace for, well over a decade. And I've benefited from so many different resources. I met Cornell, who's about to slip out the room, in that process. And honestly, it was so interesting because, yeah, like you said, it's so historic. He helped me with my very first business plan before I went anywhere else. So, like, historically, then coming out of getting that advice, I've done services with pretty much everyone. I know when George Gadsden was up here, I was like, yeah, George definitely helped me about 10 years ago. That was years after I'd gotten help from Cornell. But specifically, I didn't hear this one mentioned, and I think it's important that small businesses are aware. I also the chairman of the board of a nonprofit as well. So we have the Island Space Caribbean Museum, the very first Caribbean museum in the world that we started in 2019. But I do run a small business, and that's how I live, because this nonprofit doesn't do that. There's one entity. I mean, obviously the Urban League is huge because I've been working with the Urban League now well over 10 years, both as their photographer and then as the recipient of services from the Urban League. And I think a lot of times people misunderstand how many different opportunities the Urban League offers. But there's one more that I didn't hear, and it's the Jim Moran Institute. So I don't think I mentioned before, but I'm also a graduate of their Small Business Entrepreneurial Center. And that is also an amazing program. It's very difficult to get into because there's so few slots. But if you do get a chance to apply, their program is like a 4-month program. It's like you meet every other week. And their services are spectacular. So a lot of great partners. I've done all of them. I've done the FAU and the Urban League and the JMIs and all of the different programs that exist. I've done them because you can't stop working on your business. You never have enough information about how to do better as a business. Sorry for taking so much time.
I appreciate it. Personal testimony. And I did not forget about FAU's SBDC as well. That is a resource. Yes, sir. Yeah, last on that.
Well, we're trying to be quiet back here. We saw a lot of publicity with School of Broward, and we've been around for 56 years. We have 70 volunteers. We provide 2,500 mentoring sessions a year, and we educate around 15,000 people with our webinars. So we play well with Urban League, with everybody else here. Just wanted to add our voice to the group here that we're all here. We're agnostic, other than to see people succeed. So don't forget about the School of Broward.
Thank you. See, everyone got a free marketing. There's another one. Oh, there's also a score in Dade County. And we have a banker here that has publicity too.
Sorry to keep this going, but I feel compelled to share right now. My name's Phil Zeman. I'm with South State Bank. I'm in Orlando, but I was born and raised here, so I'm very familiar with this market. But I've been listening to everything, and I've been reading a lot. And the one thing that I've found, I'm a banker. This is my second banking career, but in between it, I had my own company. So I went through this whole process. So I'm very empathetic, but when I decided to get back into banking the second time, I said, I'm not gonna do what I did last time, which was, if banks don't really play well in the startup market, that's not our risk profile. That's not what we're charged to do. We lend your money out, we lend the government's money out, so we're prudent. But that was frustrating to me because I would always come in contact with some really talented early stage or startup companies, and I really couldn't help them. Well, before I got back into banking my second time, I made a commitment to, try to understand all those resources that benefit small businesses. And as you just heard, there's a lot of them out there. And I've concluded that there's everything you need, everything an entrepreneur needs, resource-wise, is here, but we're not quite there on the capital side yet, right? So I just want to let you know that there's tremendous effort around that. As an example, in Orlando, I'm involved with an organization called Startup Studio, and it centers on tech startups. And the one piece that they committed to is to make sure they're able to, one, have the capital available, not just to introduce them to entrepreneurs, or to venture capitalists, but to prepare them for that. And so they send you through 3 stages, accelerator type stages, cohorts, from an idea stage to a build stage to a seed stage. And then that last piece is exactly that. It preps you for the pitch and introduces you to different venture capitalists. But, at the end of the day, the resources I'm convinced are here and are available to help small businesses, minority businesses, startup businesses succeed. But what we have to do, the bankers, the support specialists, the nonprofits, community development organizations, we need to learn how to work better together and more efficiently so that the process is easier for startups when they come to us. Right now, I get the sense it's a little bit fragmented, and an early stage company or startup, has a little bit more difficult time than they should trying to navigate all these organizations and systems. And, what do I need? SCORE is a great example. SBDC is a great example. We're involved with both those organizations. I'm on the loan committee for BBIF. That's been mentioned a couple of times, Black Business Investment Fund. I'm here to tell you, they lend to early stage companies, minority businesses all day long. I approve those. So it's happening. The capital is starting to come. Be patient, but we need to do a better job kind of becoming more efficient and coordinating these resources for the startup and minority businesses so that we all can be successful. So sorry to ramble on, but I felt compelled to share.
I'm very glad actually you stood up and said that, because I really, as a small business owner, I am happy to hear that there is some conversation around how to work together. Many of us small business owners are very appreciative of the resources that are out there, if we can get access to them. But, sometimes we're in this quagmire where you have to meet certain requirements and therefore put stipulations on small businesses that they may or may not be able to handle. I think if working together would create opportunity for more capital, more resources, maybe there's a little bit more flexibility in how you give the resources. And I'll give you a personal example. I had the benefit of receiving a grant, which was wonderful, and I never poo-poo money. I really think it's a great opportunity, but it was very specific about how I could use the money when it could have helped me in other ways. So, just to say, maybe working with some small businesses to see what the needs are, how to present those types of opportunities so that it really impacts the need of the small business in the way they need it. Just a little thought.
I'm not going to talk about you. My name is Dr. LaSalle Sweetland. I'm with the Urban League, but I wanted to share some information. I interviewed the CEO of the Opportunity Fund. They're a organization out of Orlando, Tampa and Orlando, seed funders. So they're actually relocating to Miami in March. So what they created was an opportunity fund for minority small business owners. And so I interviewed him last night, and he told me that he has problems finding small businesses. And I said, I could solve that problem for you. So what's unique about him is that he fills the gap that currently exists for startups. The story he gave me, and I'll be quick. The story he gave me is if I'm a non-minority startup, I go to the golf course, talk to a couple friends and family. By the time I get to the 19th hole, I got 50 grand in my pocket. What he created and his investors created was called an opportunity fund. An opportunity fund is for minority startups, primarily in Florida, that have an idea. All you need is an idea. You go on their website, complete the application. If they think it's viable, you can get up to 50 grand to turn your idea into an MVP. And that's the gap that currently exists with VCs now. How do I get that money to transition? So seed funders, go to the website, Google them, Opportunity Fund, the Minority Fund, do your research, but the opportunities are there. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that information. Yep.
I just want to highlight on that list one more important resource, and it's going back to this issue of how you actually communicate as a small business. So at the Miami-Dade College Idea Center, they have a program called Scale Up, and the Scale Up program, very similar to some of the cohorts here, I see heads nodding, will help you get through that 10-deck slide and understand who your audience is, because that's a part of you telling your story well. It will also help you be able to figure out what is your point of differentiation in the marketplace, and what is your minimum viable product, your MVP, if you've heard those letters, about being able to actually create a proof of concept at seed, and then actually be able to do a raise or be able to get some sort of an investment. The other program, especially right now for Black female founders, is through Babson College's Miami campus, and it is the Women Innovating Now program, the WIN Lab. I'm a startup coach in that program also, and they take you through a 5-month cohort experience where you learn this almost as if it's an accelerator of going to business school. So in addition to the dollar resources, there are a lot of resources that will train you how to actually have a very strong business mindset, how to have a growth versus fixed mindset, and how to actually be able to then package that in a story to be able to tell that so that you can get those dollars. Yes. Babson, Babson, B-A-B-S-O-N, Babson, Win, W-I-N, Win Lab.
Everybody got that? Babson College, Women Innovation Now. Win Lab. Okay, so we talked about all this success you guys are having. What about those challenges? How do you get there? What about that?
Girl, which one? Which challenge? Oh my gosh, there are just so many. I'll share one particular challenge. So there was a point, so I now work for a company called Brex. It's a fintech company. It's worth right now $13 billion, amazing startup, great culture. Me as a founder never envisioned working for somebody, but they gave me the creative freedom and flexibility to do what I do best, which is connect with founders, connect founders to investors, connect investors to resources, connect, that's my thing. Before that, it took me a moment where I had felt so burnt out, but I realized I wasn't being effective in the way that I was doing my business. So I was a founder working on a startup that basically aimed to demystify language around VC. So I saw a lot of parallels between how a second language learner will acquire their second language and how a first-time founder interacts with language around VC. Saw a lot of similar parallels, so I was solving for that. But I hit a point where I was just like, what the hell am I doing? And it was like, I was sad. I was like borderline depression, but highly functioning depression. Didn't even know until there was one night where I just started bawling. Basically, it took a lot of self-awareness and having to literally pick myself up. But thank God I had the community around me, which I feel like has been a real common theme, community and strength and that. But it took that moment to be able to bring me into my new role that I'm loving, I'm thriving, I'm flourishing. It's like the best decision that I made this year or last year when I was trying to make a joke, it didn't land. It was bad. It was so bad. I was like, as I said it, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna, it's not gonna land, it's not gonna land. But it honestly was a great decision, but it was a really hard time for me as a founder because I had to put my pride aside to be like, okay, well, I've been building this. People know me as a founder. They know me as X. But I had to just be like, all right, well, at that point, you're not being effective as X, so what are you gonna do? And so, yeah, I took the opportunity from Brex. Lots of challenges daily.
Brilliant question, because in my tradition, no mud, no lotus. So if you don't know how to actually sit in the mud, that's where everything that's a good seed actually gets planted. So if you've got mud showing up and you learn how to turn toward it and go, great, man, there's a lot of mud. Like that's actually where you find the seeds of what it is. You know, diamonds didn't get created because they were a piece of carbon sitting down at South Point Park and on a lawn chair by the Boucher brothers. Diamonds got created because inside the earth, they were squeezed between two tectonic plates and cracked and fractured and eventually become a gemstone. So it's all grist for the mill when you have those challenges. It's the sandpaper that, you know, David inside the stone of Michelangelo, no more hammer or chisel, I'm done. No, but you know, that's what you have to do to find what is beautiful within to come without. What I experienced at the first part of the pandemic was curious because here I gathered community. I help people tune down their noise of the noisiness and the busyness of the business of living. And I couldn't connect anymore in person. And an app that was called at the time Meditation Live was created by two Silicon Valley upstarts that came to Miami who had also burned out. And I'd had the woman at one of my events I used to hold called Venture Women, focusing on how we can be the kind of women we want to see in the world. And she auditioned me to be on their app because they decided to give free meditation, mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and resilience training and happiness and healing on Zoom. And Zoom was one of their investors, and so was SoftBank to the tune of $3 million. And I found myself as a person who used to be in the TV industry building brands, like you said, in front of Zoom. And somebody said, oh yeah, now I'm on Zoom. Like, okay, I gotta have a green screen, and like, I gotta have these ring lights, and I wear glasses, but now there's little things in my eyes. And all of a sudden, like, I'm on at 11. Okay, I gotta figure out how to calm people down in 15 minutes flat. Oh, I'm on at noon. I gotta do it in 10 minutes. Oh, I gotta do the 5-minute afternoon. I became what it was that I had been doing in person virtually. And it became the hottest way for me to go from being that piece of carbon to the jewel that I now am, because it trained me to be in the hot seat and do what I had to do this morning, which was go through traffic and still offer you all a pocket of peace. To actually be the peace that I wanted to share with all of you in the world. So the challenge, say thank you. Sort through it, sit in the mud and figure out what you're seeding in terms of the lotus. No mud, no lotus. And I did not say that, Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher, did, who just passed away.
So challenges. When I first started business, I was taking a workshop, told you I've taken a lot of workshops, where one of the best pieces of advice was business is not a straight line to success. There'll be a lot of curves and words and words, so there's challenges every day. In my show, it's funny, I talk to a lot of businesses, and you expect that they would say their challenges is around money and resources and operations, and they can't get their thing shipped or widgets shipped or built. And that those are challenges, but what I really hear, and I think these two ladies have demonstrated as well, there's an emotional connection here. There's a mental thing that happens. There's it really is your baby. It's who you are. And so that's what I think is the biggest challenge for most business owners, is their livelihood. So when that fails, can I eat? But I found that was mine as well. I felt like, prior to the pandemic, I was living a very chaotic experience in this business world. I was alone. I felt alone a lot. You go on Google and see this business that's making $14 million, and oh my God, they're very successful. Why isn't that happening for me? But they don't tell the story that this was a 20-year work in progress. This felt like yesterday. They hit big, and you're comparing yourself, and there's a lot of emotional struggle as to why am I not being successful. I go back to, I guess I'll say it again, the pandemic was a good thing for me just because it made me slow some stuff down, redirect what my focus was, and then now I'm able to really try to be intentional in where my missions, my goals. Again, challenges still appear. You got to work through them. You got to figure them out. But you feel a little bit more comfortable. I feel a little bit more comfortable and confident now that I really have a sense of who we are. I'll cry for about an hour and then get up and start all over again. Exactly. So yes, definitely challenges.
Sorry, this is my second time up here. But because as a founder, I'm from Miami, Florida, grew up in Miami, and I have found the number one challenge in creating my business was finding the right people. Finding the right people who were on the same wavelength, had the same vision, and also were able to understand the technology that we're trying to create and get in. And so I moved back home to really bring this vision to life. And it's just been so difficult to find a team. And I've been doing it myself for a very long time, concept to everything by myself. And I've only just found my high school friend, been friends for many years, and she's in this type of industry to assist me with getting that. So that is a huge challenge that I'm finding, and getting information. Another challenge that I'm finding that's not readily available about, people in Miami and where people are in their economic standing at right now. And so this is why we're here. We're trying to figure out how best to address, how best to get the information. I think that through that and working through that challenge, meeting new people is the number one way that I have been able to achieve a lot. so far and moving very fast. So any assistance that can be led for community-based wise is to be focusing on that type of information, because bridging the gap and bringing people together, especially in this technological space where we're moving, we can't get left behind with this. And so definitely.
If you have a chance, I know it's hard to find a team, I'll say that as well, but really try to surround yourself with other women entrepreneurs, other people in whatever space you can, because they will be a huge support system. Even if you're just kind of moaning about your day, it definitely does make a big difference.
I'd also recommend, if you don't follow Refresh Miami, it's really the #1 spot for information of startup action happening in Miami, including being able to post jobs that you are looking to fill. And you'll learn everything in Jeanine's world from a VC standpoint, who's landed now as a unicorn, who just raised 10 million, who's in seed. But it will educate you about what's happening in this community, to be able to just kind of have your eyes. It's not because it's what hits Miami Herald, it's what's literally happened behind the scenes. So Refresh Miami as a comms, like communications resource.
Okay. Next thing we're going to request on this workshop is they need a wireless mic. Right, technology for people. You know, one of the things before I get to the next topic, as a banker, and we think about small business and think about what some of the challenges are, you know, it's not just about access to capital. You know, when you ask some small businesses, who's your banker? They might say, okay, Banco ZK, okay, Wells Fargo, okay, Fifth Third, you know, First Horizon, you know, okay, South State. That's not a banker. That's a name of a bank. Who is your banker? If you don't have a relationship with a banker before you have the need for money, you're gonna run into a challenge. So you need to know who your banker is. Just start to, you know, figure out, you know, who your bank is and get a relationship with the banker. So, you know, a couple of years down the lane, when you need the money, they've already prepared you. Okay, if you're looking for $50,000 or you're looking for $20,000 or $10,000, you already know what you need to have in terms of your finances, in terms of your business plan, what you need to have. So when I ask, who's your banker, don't name the name of the bank, because those are financial institutions that employ individuals to serve you. So. An attorney, an accountant, a good friend. Unfortunately, one of the businesses we talked to on our show had to close during the pandemic, but it wasn't because of the pandemic. They unfortunately had rented a building and not had an attorney look at the rental agreement. And you know, it was very detrimental to them because, of course, it was an agreement that aired on the side of the land owner of the property and not them. And so I definitely agree with you. You should have a person you can go to in a bank that knows you by name. You can have those conversations with. It's the same for an attorney, the same for an accountant and some other folks. You want those folks on your team as well. Definitely.
If I could just add to that, morning, my name is Mark Shim, and I'm the business banking manager for Truist. You may not recognize that name, but you may recognize the name SunTrust BT. So we came together in late 2019. So today we're the 6th largest financial institution in the country. So typically our community banks do a really good job of being business bankers and know their clients. The bigger players typically don't do as great of a job. I think the one thing that separates Truist, and this is my shameless plug, we are a community-based bank. While we are a big bank, we have a community bank model. And every single one of the relationship managers that reported to me, that is the one thing I strive for. We intentionally go out to make sure that we connect with our clients. I can't tell you how important that is to know who your banker is. Don't just say the name, because the name on the building really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's that individual and it's that person. So we strive for that. So if you are in the market looking for a new bank, come look us up. Do we get it perfect every single time? No, we do not. But when it comes to capital, if we don't know who you are and you're walking off the street and say, hey, we need to borrow money, we got no idea who you are. So let's start that relationship early in the process and we'll get you to where you need to get to. Thank you.
And a good banker will never tell you no. If they say no to you, they say not yet, or they have other resources and they can tell you where to go to get those resources to prepare you to be ready. Yes.
Hi, good morning again. I house over 120 small businesses who get their business mail at my space. And so I knew what Truist was because we get direct mail like this for the business owners, but they get dinged when they need help. So I get all of your flyers and put them in the slots, but our folks don't get funded because they're not really getting a relationship. So if you guys could help us on that, because they literally reply to me and say, Michelle, toss it, scan it, recycle it, right? And so if you can talk to those who are not tech-based, but want to access capital, I'm here for that, so I can take that information back to our community. Thank you.
Thank you for the real hand experience. So we're almost getting close, but we're almost at the end. But I wanted to say this as we get into the next conversation, and really it's about succession planning or even trying to sell your business, the ownership of the business. So while many businesses run for years, even over several generations, businesses open and close all the time. Here are a few reasons why you may want to sell or close your business. Business or professional reasons include job offer from another company, purchase offer for your business and your business assets, dissatisfaction with sales and profits, changes in the market or industry. Personal reasons include retirement, burnout, with self-employment, health concerns, or family needs, desires to go in a new direction. So while I know most of your organizations are young, what do you have in place for succession planning when you intend to retire?
Oh. Oh, I was like, oh, well, I mean, I have my 401k active with me, but that's kind of why I got into venture capital and why I'm interested in investing. From a business standpoint, I'm not a founder right now, so maybe when I finish my residency with Brex, I'll found something else, but really looking at investment as a way to build generational wealth. Like it's a long-term game, right? And so I'm thinking about it, how can I start to set my family up for success and my kids and their kids' kids and just on and on and on by way of investments. And so that's what I've been looking at as an asset class across like different types of things. So venture capital, also of course in crypto right now, more specifically like focusing on companies who are building in Web3 on the blockchain. But yeah, that's how I see it.
That's such a powerful question. It's a moment to pause to answer that question. So in my planning, I have two paths I'm moving in right now as an entrepreneur. One of them is to really automate a lot more of my teaching and my training into a passive income model. So part of that is creating my content that I teach and offering people an ability to be able to buy that in multiples in the virtual space, so that that passive income of take my mindfulness 101 class for $49 is happening at 50 or 100 or 1,000 or 50,000 individuals. And so that I'm creating my own structure of income, that I'm actually not trading time for dollars as an entrepreneur. I'm using an automated system to create that structure. And then interestingly enough, drum roll, I've moved toward actually creating a nonprofit for the purpose of creating some social impact. And so part of that is actually diving into accessing funds to be able to help people with the levels of Great Resignation, depression, stress, and mental wellness being at such a huge, unprecedented percentage of so many people's challenges right now. That actually is part of my succession plan, is to create that as sort of the legacy portion of what it is that I actually do. I don't have children, so my plan will actually be to offer this to my nieces, whatever that looks like eventually. Except they're going to have to go through my mindfulness 101 class before they ever end up on in my will. As they got to me, I'm like, you won't get the money unless you sit down for a little bit.
I feel like they're being black now. To answer your question for my business, no, I do not have a succession plan. Honestly, probably day to day, I'm just trying to figure out how to keep it open. So I hadn't thought that far down the road. What I will say I'm very thankful for is, again, another workshop I took once that had to do with sweat equity. And if you are looking at a succession plan that includes buying or selling, that you're, oh, I'm sorry. Hello. I do that. Okay, so I'll start with, years ago, I took a workshop on sweat equity. And the idea behind that is if you are going to sell at some point, that you look at more than just the widget itself and the value of the widget, but you also look at the labor and the investment and all of the behind the scenes that occurred that you also need to be reimbursed for lack of a better way to put it, or compensated for lack of a better way to put it. There are experts out there that can help you maneuver that land, that landmine when you're ready for that. So I probably should think of that a little bit more, but at least I sort of feel like I have the information once I get to that point, and I highly encourage everyone to start at least doing the research, at least starting to get yourself a little knowledgeable about what, we want to go with your business. And as you grow, start to incorporate some of that into your plan. Yes, ma'am.
Just try to talk about, no, I'm not allowed to talk. What are you doing for your employees to set them up?
I don't have any. I do I work with a lot of contractors on special projects. But I agree. At some point, I would love to have employees, and I've actually had conversations around, when we're there, how can we look at 401k plans? And, there's been talk around the possibility of the employees ultimately being the owners of a local based business. I know that's the model that's occurring in this ecosystem as well. So those are all, having done a little bit of research and going through several workshops, I know those types of things exist. So when I start having those conversations with incorporate them.
How do you pay yourself first? How do you make sure you pay yourself?
Ooh, now that's a conversation right there. And I'll be honest, I will say I probably don't all the time. Again, and that's part of the challenge of being a small business owner. You have to remember that you have to pay yourself, but when a widget needs to be paid or rent needs to be paid, you also cannot deny that as well. So I'm not saying I've been great at that, but I will say right before the pandemic, I sort of set a goal for that year that I was going to be intentional about that I would pay myself something. It might not have been top dollar, but I would pay myself something just to get into a rhythm of when I get $1, 25 cents of it or 50 cents of it should be mine for my livelihood. Because you really aren't supposed to commingle your money. You're supposed to have a life I guess you're sort of an employee of the business, and you don't want to use business money to now dabble into being able to live. So it's just really being intentional. But I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, as Steve Vark likes to say.
So I've gone through a couple of structures, having been an agency owner when I left the TV business, and I had employees who worked for me. And I worked in a profit sharing scenario. So if we increased how many clients we were handling, whether it was the Office of Trade, Tourism, and Economic Development, whether it was the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, they got a piece of what we grew through, and I encouraged them greatly to do that. And then I decided I didn't want to have an office anymore, and I decided I didn't want to have employees anymore. And I reached a stage where I really wanted to offer those services on my own. And so my structure of how I managed me had to shift. I pay myself first before anything else, because just like your mental wellness and your capacity to be present, nothing else functions if you are actually not taken care of. So that one's a non-negotiable boundary that I have.
And that boundary I adopted because I was like, oh, absolutely not. I'm not doing this anymore. As a founder, you, just like you said, Stephanie, your livelihood is your business, and your mindset is like, okay, how am I going to make rent? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Operating at a place of deficit is never a good place to operate. And when I realized that I was doing that and that my mental health was struggling because my decisions that I was making were being based on my livelihood versus the health of my business, that's when I was like, I need to stop. So now how I pay myself is Brex pays me what I'm worth, and they're going to keep paying me what I'm worth. And they gave me equity within the company. And that's something that is valuable to me. And that was a value that I now have as like a non-negotiable. However, I can clearly see the difference in my mental health. I can clearly see the difference in my performance, the difference in my relationships. Like, I am more effective when I'm taken care of. And it took a long time for me to realize that, but it's something, like you said now, Suzanne, like that's a non-negotiable for me, period.
Just like that. So do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, you know what? We're gonna make this easy. Well, no, we can't make it easy. Because I was like, put it there, but then they have to respond, so that just come up.
I just want to say real quickly, Stephanie, I'm a big fan of yours, okay? Yeah, I know, it's me. And I am definitely on hashtag Stephanie Van Vark deserves to get paid top dollar ASAP, because the work you do is outstanding for all of Overtown. So I really hope and pray to God that you get paid what you deserve pronto, because you deserve it, okay? And that's all I came here to say.
I've been participating in nonprofits for many, many years. And what I've noticed is that once the CEO retires, the company fails. Do you know, and I do not know of any comprehensive succession plan for nonprofits?
Well, first of all, I agree. First of all, I agree with you, because the nonprofits that I actually have had as clients, many of them are formed by a human being, and most of it, the employees are family. I feel like the other challenge is sometimes nonprofits don't recognize they're a business as well. I know there's that passion component, there's that socialization component, but you're running a business. Because you got to pay your bills, you got to pay your employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Catalyst Miami might have a program that helps with that sort of thought of succession for nonprofits. I know they've done a lot of training for nonprofits, but you are correct. I think, and hopefully I'm thinking after the pandemic, there has been sort of a shift in mindset when it comes to nonprofits understanding their business, and they're going to have to operate a little bit differently in thinking of a succession plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So I sit on the board of Philanthropy Miami. I'm sure some of you know Philanthropy Miami in the community. I know we're experiencing that. Hank Radema began Philanthropy Miami. We now have a new CEO and we're about to take another level of shift. I would say there are a few I've worked with, specifically the Holistic Life Foundation. If any of you are familiar with meditation instead of detention, the guys out of Baltimore, you might have seen the little video of the little boy who learns how to meditate instead of going into a detention room. That's a 17-year running nonprofit by two family members, Ali and Atman Smith, with their buddy that created it 17 years ago. They all went to school together. And they have, for the first time in their plan, stepped aside from being the executive directors, which they were the founders. They've now hired a new executive director. I've watched them in the last 3 years go through the process. And so far, they have chosen the right person. They are now more in the offering of the services rather than trying to run the nonprofit from a personality style basis. And then there's a couple of others I would bring up that were based on people who had visions. And I don't know the exact behind the scenes, but David Fairchild, before Fairchild Tropical Gardens got created, had the Kampong, which is also a garden, and both of those nonprofits were based on his vision. So I don't know the particulars of how they figured out that structure, but he's not alive any longer. So they clearly are succeeding. They clearly are still around and doing well. So those would be the ones that I would mention in terms of those that have worked.
I also encourage you to look up Homeboy Industries out of California. Homeboy Industries out of California. We had the good fortune, first of all, I love that organization. It's an amazing organization. And we had the good fortune of going to a workshop there. One of the things that they have done, because they understood that it was started by a pastor and everything lived and sort of died on that pastor. They decided to hire a CEO. They happened to hire a CEO who just retired and wanted something to do and didn't want big bucks for it. So that CEO was able to come in and put in a real structure for the organization that meant it would succeed in some way. And so I really impressed by that because, again, a lot of times the CEO first started it, but they understood that at the end of the day, if they didn't get somebody in there to put a structure, that once he left, whatever way that was, it would not exist anymore. So.
That was a great question because nonprofits are businesses, and I started in the nonprofit industry prior to coming into banking. And those that I've seen have succeeded, treated like a business. So succession planning is key.
Thank you so much. I failed to introduce myself earlier. I'm Beatrice Louis Saint. I'm the president of the Florida State Minority Supply Development Council. We help Hispanic, Asian, African American, Native American owned companies to grow. I just wanted to share a couple of things as it relates to succession planning. Let me recommend 2 books. One is called Traction, and even if it's specifically for for-profits, but I think if you take their survey and answer some questions, even if you're running a not-for-profit, it would be very helpful in terms of putting certain things in place that allows you to still function and being very clear about your customer, your vision, where you want to go and so forth. And another book I want to recommend is called Scale Up. It's an excellent book. It talks about why so many companies fail and what are some of the redundancies and things that you have to do to make certain that you grow. I know I've met some folks that own not-for-profits. Many times as founders of the organizations, we want to have impact, but there's so many groups that could use you on their board or as a mentor or serving in a different capacity rather than starting your own not-for-profit. So that's something to think about. And as entrepreneurs, many of us want to start a company rather than buying one. If you can find a company that has clients already, that has history, that has a building, website, and so forth, relationships with the bank, that is definitely a way to grow exponentially. I want to invite everyone to check our website. We have a program currently that's helping companies recover from COVID, and we assign specialty consultants that can create work products for you. And the website is fsmsdc.org. And our business expo is coming up. We've been virtual the last 2 years, but we're having a super matchmaker where we're connecting buyers and sellers together. That's May 18th at the Dodge City Center. Thank you so much. I've got plenty of cards, but it's fsmsdc.org, and it's the COVID Relief and Response Program. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Camilo Mejia. I'm a board member with CRAF. So I want to say thank you so much to the panelists and to the moderator for a great panel, really, really amazing. I'm also the networks director at Catalyst Miami, which has been referenced here. And shameless plug, you know, we are going to have two co-workers, two of my colleagues are going to be on the panel, Building Generational Wealth at 1:45 p.m. And they're going to be talking about some of these strategies that we're helping people with, talking about planning for the future for your family, for workers, you know, different business models like worker co-owned businesses, community-owned or community co-owned commercial real estate, and other really innovative strategies that we have come up with because we don't want to just, as a service provision organization, we don't want to just help people manage their poverty and just get out of debt just to go right back into it, but how do we break the cycle of poverty? How do we build generational wealth? And I think it touches on a lot of the things that you all have spoken about. So don't miss it, 1:45 p.m., Building Generational Wealth workshop, and thank you so much again.
We appreciate it. So we're getting to the end of our time, and you know, we want to thank our panelists here because they have provided us with great information, a lot of great resources. Networking is key, right? So don't just stop here. I like that we had the audience share information because you all are valuable resources as well. And just remember, small businesses are the anchor of our economy, building jobs as well as growth and innovation in our community. We think about companies that started like Apple, you know, Silicon Valley, all those different, not just tech businesses, but other businesses. If they didn't start in infancy stages, car companies, where would our economy be now? Who employs the majority of people? It's the small businesses that in turn turn into these large corporations. So any last words for any of our presenters before we go to lunch?
She's allowed to take a pass. You're always allowed to take a pass. My most important takeaway is to remind you to take care of yourself, because it is the only way you can take care of your business. The holistic connectivity and the interdependence of your wellness and the wealth that you create, whether that's cash flow or succession planning or profit sharing, depends on you being well. Illness, if you've noted, is spelled with an I. Wellness is spelled W-E. And that's based on a beautiful South African philosophy called Ubuntu. And it means that I'm a person because of other people. It means I see you. I am because, yes, I am a person because it's bingo. And this is it. So when we recognize that if we aren't well, ask for help. If we feel ill, tell someone not feeling well. And that way we can stay connected in community, because if there's nothing I wasn't more impressed by is how many small business people found their spine, found their mojo, and found an ability. There he is, he walks in, Mr. Mojo himself. So many of you have found that. You now have an inner capacity to turn toward a resource that isn't your bank account or your banker, your own resilience. Keep remembering to turn toward that. Because if you're well and you start at the center with your own wellness, that's what it is that you will actually be able to impact others with outside of yourself.
Just
first of all, I would like to say thank you for spending the time with us and listening to what we had to say. We hope you got a morsel of good information, and hope we're able to support it any way we can. If I'm to leave any last word as a small business owner, please remember you're not alone. I thought I was, but there is a huge community out there of support. You'll just reach out, network, get to know some folks, look for, I like to call mentors, which is the gentleman back there, Don Patterson, thank you so much. But definitely know you're not alone. And if you can remember that, you'll make it through.
I'm sorry, I couldn't let this opportunity get away without saying just a couple things. One is, I think it's important for you to recognize that, and a really dear friend who we lost just a short while ago, Tom Zuniga, some of you know who Tom Zuniga is. One of his phrases that he shared with us is that nonprofit is a legal status, it's not your business strategy. Let that sink in a big way, because it changes everything. You gotta be every bit of a business operating as a for-profit as you do as a nonprofit. You got to pay yourself, right? And then the other thing I wanted to make mention too is that Don Patterson, Riva Development Corporation, we've been a 501c3 for 17 years. We consulted with a lot of nonprofits, building housing and economic development opportunities in underserved neighborhoods. We are also a member of the, we just changed it up, so it's a Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. It was South Florida, so we've expanded. And so the point here is that because we're growing, we think it's important to grow our membership too. So if you like what you heard here, make sure that you consider membership, because we do this more than just once a year.